Hi, I'm Teresa. I am an executive coach and leadership authority for aspiring female professionals, and I'm a new entrepreneur. Just started in December and absolutely loving it.
So tell us about, let's get started at the beginning. So how did you get started as an entrepreneur? Because you went full time in December, but you
Mhm.
had been starting a little bit in it beforehand, correct?
I did. So, how I started, Eleanor, was I had a side hustle, like many, entrepreneurs that get their start. So I always loved I always loved coaching, always loved working with executive women, and so I decided that I would start bringing my expertise and blending some of my consulting and coaching experience and working with women. So that started off with two or three clients, which then turned to five or six, which then turned to nine or 10. So it was at that jumping point, if you will, that I decided, okay, there's something here. There's something that I can grow and build. But as an executive, I didn't really know how to make that transition. I just knew that I loved coaching. And so that's what precipitated me then deciding, okay, well, if I'm going to make this a real go, then I'm going to have to think about how do I transition from the executive space and move over to a full time entrepreneur. And the passion was there. The passion was always there, but it was the know how and the confidence being transitioned from an executive to a business owner that wasn't fully formed.
So when we think about you as an executive and you built up and created an extraordinary career, as a leader in the corporate world, in that world, how did you think about this idea of promoting yourself? So we hear we're
Mhm,
supposed to have a personal brand. We hear we're supposed to put ourselves out there. What did
mhm.
that look like for you as a corporate leader?
Well, one of the things that was really telling for me is that in my corporate career, a lot of that putting yourself out there is kind of in some ways done for you, right? So we have teams that talk about how to position ourselves. I led communications when I was in my corporate life. So I had some background around how to, connect with people, how to create an audience, how to position myself. However, it was done in a very formal setting. So, I almost call it like very buttoned up. It was very buttoned up and it was very structured and with a format and with rules, and so transitioning from that identity of rule based thinking, where everything is kind of one, two, three in a specific list, to promoting myself in a entrepreneurial setting was very different because then like I'm the face of the business, right? So now it's about promoting myself versus promoting my services or my at the time I was in HR, promoting what I do in human resources and my team. Well, I don't have a team. I'm a team of one. So now how do I promote the team of one? That was a huge shift for me.
And what was that like? So when you think about, so you start promoting yourself as an entrepreneur. Actually, let me back up. In the initial iteration of your business, as you were basically proving the concept and starting to sell coaching, and I mean, you did also an extraordinary job there. How did you market yourself there when you were a side hustle? How did you kind of build your audience or market or get those early clients?
A lot of it was through story, I would say, Eleanor. I think because I didn't know what I didn't know, but what I did know was that, connecting with women through story seemed to really make an impact. So it would start off quite honestly by being vulnerable on social media, just sharing, bits and pieces of my corporate life and some of the struggles that I have. I always call myself a recovering high achiever because that was part of my story. And so, what started off as just talking a little bit about my very, type A driven personality and what that cost me was really what brought people to me saying, oh my gosh, I can relate. And so how do you get out of that? Or, what can I do next? Or, I'd like to get promoted, but I just don't want to work that hard. I'm sacrificing family or whatever it might be. So it really started off with just sharing tidbits of my story and realizing that people were resonating and they wanted to hear more.
Cool. And
Mhm.
so that's fascinating. And presumably you were sharing these on things like LinkedIn or
Yeah.
Instagram. What did that look like for you? Okay. What was that
Yeah.
like, putting yourself out there? How did that feel, as a buttoned up corporate leader, to just starting to share? And what I'm hearing is that it actually wasn't like even necessarily a marketing thing. It was more like a service thing. Like,
Yeah.
I know that there's other women out there who have been, who I've walked in their shoes. I want to share a little bit about my story to serve. That's my sense of where it was
Yeah.
coming from. Like, what was that like initially?
Yeah. No, great question. It was difficult, to be honest, because prior to becoming a coach full time, I was really not on social media a lot. I was not on Facebook. I was not on Instagram. I was rarely even on LinkedIn. I kept it very private, very insular, and clear demarcation between work and personal life. So once I decided to make the leap, I quickly learned that I had to be visible. And so there was a lot of confusion at first around, well, where am I supposed to be visible? Am I supposed to be on LinkedIn or social or Instagram or Facebook? So I went on all of them, and I decided to start ex- almost feeling more vulnerable, like really showcasing who I am, what I do, what my struggle was. But that was a difficult transition for me because, again, I was going from a different values shift. I was going through from a structure and a format to now being more loose and really showing people who I am. So that took some time to really understand, is it having the effect that I want it to, or am I just talking? And that took some time.
Okay. And so then as you make the transition, as you start to put yourself out there, share some more of your experiences on social, figure out which platform, you want to be
Yeah.
um, where are you now in this process?
Well, I decided to really get crisp as to where I wanted to be on social. That was the very first thing I decided to do with your help. So, for example, I was spending a lot of time on Instagram, and that's not my that's not where I think I shine. And it's also not where I think the clients who are looking for my services are hanging out. So that took a lot of trial and error. It doesn't mean that I'm not visible on those platforms, because I am. However, I really got very crisp as to where I am going to spend most of my time and what kind of message am I going to create when I'm on it. So, for example, in my business, that's LinkedIn. In some other coaches or influencers, that might be more Instagram, but that wouldn't be my area. So really refining my audience and where they hang out and where they are looking for people like me was really one of the first steps. So now primarily it's all LinkedIn.
And what impact did that have, making those decisions about, here's where I'm going to show up primarily, here's the message that I'm going to bring to this platform? What impact did that have on your comfort as a marketer, and the sort of overwhelm that we can sometimes feel when it
Yeah.
comes to social media?
Well, let me just say sweet relief. It's the first thing, because and I'm sure many entrepreneurs who are listening may relate to this, but I was everywhere all the time and it was exhausting. I felt like I was making no inroads. So for the very beginning was just relief. I knew where to go. I knew where to expend my energy, and that was very, very important. And so that was like the first thing. And secondly, the types of people that contacted me were motivated, right? So then all of a sudden, I'm in an audience of motivated potential clients that are looking to solve a problem that I can help them with. And ideally, that's what I'm here to do, is to help them solve a problem that I am ideal to help them with. So it really just allowed me to craft a message that was clear, concise, and attracted the right kind of clients that I would benefit, and kind of clifford away any other type of client that I'm just not well suited for. So that was probably the two biggest gains I had right from the beginning.
One of the things that helped you so much as a corporate leader and has helped your business, grow the way that it has since you started it, really is focus, discipline, being mindful and intentional about where you put your energy and where. I mean, anybody
Mhm.
who knows you sees this. So my curiosity is, tell us a little bit about kind of the boundaries that maybe you set for yourself around social. So,
Mm,
I often hear from founders who are marketing on social media and who are still running a lot of their own marketing because we're supposed to show up and be authentic,
right,
that
right.
sometimes it's hard to maintain boundaries, so you
Mhm.
end up s- feeling drained. And you talked about, feeling exhausted when you had to be on all these different platforms.
Yeah,
How do you create boundaries for yourself?
I love that question. Well, for one, I would say really getting clear on what the masses say and then what's right for you. Because when I was new at it, if I was to listen to what everyone else said, I would be on there every day. I would be, doing reels. I would be doing like, and that was the very first thing I need to get clear on. I don't need to twerk, as you said, Eleanor, once, which I just loved. That's not on brand for me. So I need to get clear on what is on brand for me. I also need to get clear on what was my boundary. And so for me, my boundary is 3 times a week. I go on there and I deliver a carefully curated, message that speaks to my audience. And I don't add anything, super superfluous on top of that. I just get very clear who I am, how can I help, what are some of the specific problems that people may be experiencing. And so that's 3 times a week. I also, another boundary that's really important for me is knowing when to shut off. So I don't scroll after 9 o'clock. I immediately put the phones away. They're not in my bedroom, they're not anywhere close to where I can access them at that time, because it can be almost like a vacuum, right? Looking at who has responded to your post. And I didn't want to get into that, because social media can be about popularity if you allow it to. And what I wanted was to create an audience or a following of people that truly resonate with what it is I have to say, versus something witty that I may have said or something funny. Although that has its place. I love a good laugh, but I just needed to be really careful as to how much time and attention I was placing on what people may have said about my post versus did I deliver a really on point message that I think could help someone.
And when you think about the impact of this intentional strategy, an intentional way of being in relationship
Mhm.
with the platform, what has the impact been so far?
Well, I'll tell you this. I now, and I'm at a point in my business where the people that come to me are highly motivated. They're not individuals that are, for example, just looking to check it out or to find out more. I think that my messaging is very clear, that I work with a specific type of woman with a specific type of problem. And so, what that has allowed for me is really good focused attention on maybe not hundreds of women, but a solid number of women that are already 80% there, when we're talking and really want to experience a change versus expending a lot of time on energy on perhaps volumes more people of women that are not necessarily looking to use my services. So it's really just allowed for a quality experience and a quality call or a quality conversation, which I am all for. I mean, I'm a coach, so quality conversations are what I should be good at. So, yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. And I love that I just kind of personally love the intention that you've brought to it, because there are increasing conversations, and I'll be talking about this, in the documentary itself, about like the emotional labor that happens when,
Mhm.
we're told to show up, be our authentic selves, and be available and always on.
Mhm.
And so then you become a product. You know what I mean? And your
Yes.
day-to-day life experience becomes a product. And that, to me, some people their energy levels can totally sustain that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of us for whom it can't,
Mhm. Oh,
and so
yeah.
it's like, what's the alternative? What do we do here? How do I, and I love this example. I think so many people will relate to this example. No, you can do it. Like, you can be intentional 3 times a week, a clear message. Like, it's
Yeah.
just beautiful. Yeah.
Totally. And I think that, I've always lived by, quality over quantity. So sure, I could go on there 5 or 6 times and deliver a message, and maybe that will yield some impact, maybe it won't. But I know for me, I try to pay meticulous attention to those 3 times. And so far, and again, I'm early in my business, so I know that there's still a lot to learn, but so far that has allowed me to be very present for my clients and present for any potential clients in a way that's meaningful versus just busy making and just going on for the sake of being busy. And there's a key difference between just being busy, in the business versus actually being very mindful and intentional in the business.
Amazing. Is there anything you wanted to add on this that I didn't ask you, that you think is important for women who are listening and who are in that process of navigating and trying to arrive at an intentional relationship and way of being in terms of social media marketing?
Yeah, I would say that, social media is something that many of us struggle with, whether you're in corporate or whether you're an entrepreneur. How much is too much? How much is too little? I would say first and foremost, you're not alone in that question. Like, what do I say? How often do I go on? So I would say just really pay attention to what the strategy is, but also pay attention to how much you're willing to give of yourself, because that is a question that I had to ask. And again, because I am a high achiever and I work with high achieving women, we consistently have to tame our DNA to keep going. And so that is one thing that I find even with social media is be mindful, be present, but just be careful to not over index on that and dilute the message that you're trying to give other women or other people.
So good. Do not over index. Oh,
Right?
come on. That is the best. It's so true. It's so true.
So true.
Teresa Vozza, thank you so much for your contribution on this.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.